Once upon a time, there was a kind girl named Snow White. She lived in a big castle with Prince Antoine. They were very happy together. The land was full of blue skies and green grass. But not far away, an evil queen lived in a dark cave. Her name was Queen Hela. She had a servant named Dunkov. They were banished for trying to hurt Snow White. Now, Hela wanted revenge. "This time," said Hela, "no one can stop me." "Yes, my queen," said Dunkov, shaking with fear. Hela wanted to be the most beautiful in all the land. She asked her servant, "Who is the fairest of them all?" Dunkov said, "You are, my queen, except for Snow White." Hela became very angry. "I must be the most beautiful," she shouted. She decided to make a new magic mirror. Her old mirror was locked in the castle dungeon. So, Hela began to make a stronger mirror. She opened her big black spellbook. It told her what she needed. She needed gem leaves, pink buds, and swamp stones. She boiled them for 20 minutes at 400 degrees. The dark pot began to bubble. Black smoke filled the cave. Then a new mirror came out of the pot. It floated in the air. The mirror had a purple, spiky frame. Black stones flew around it. Black mirror, said Hela, "wake up. Show me the forest of Snow White's little friends." The mirror showed the dwarfs' forest. It became dark and scary. "Change the forest and capture them all," Hela said. Far away, the 7 dwarfs were working in the mine. They sang and worked all day. When the day was done, they walked home in a line. There was Ace, shy, angry, silly, curious, jolly, and lazy. "What a long day," said Jolly. "Yes," said Lazy, "let's rest here." No, said Ace. "We must go home before it is dark." They all started walking again. Silly walked at the back of the line. He saw a crow in the tree. The crow had a shiny stone in its mouth. Silly wanted the shiny stone. He climbed up the tree. "Come here, little bird," he said. But the crow flew away. Then the branches moved and caught Silly. He was trapped and could not move. His green hat fell on a branch. The other dwarfs did not see him. They kept walking. Now, Curious was the last in the line. He smelled something sweet. That smells like pie," he said. He followed the smell into the forest. He did not see the magic vines. The vines wrapped around him and pulled him away. His yellow hat was left behind. The other dwarfs did not know he was gone. They reached their little cottage. Meanwhile, in the castle, Snow White was getting ready. She packed a basket of food. She wanted to visit her 7 friends. "My dear," said Prince Antoine, "be careful. The evil Hela could be anywhere." "I will, my love," said Snow White. She left the castle and walked into the forest. A little bird landed on her shoulder. The bird chirped and looked worried. "What is it, little bird?" asked Snow White. The bird flew away from the path. Snow White followed it. She saw something hanging from a branch. It was a green hat. "This is Silly's hat," she cried. "Oh no, something bad has happened." She kept following the bird. Soon she found a yellow hat on a bush. "This is Curious's hat," she said. She walked faster to the dwarf's house. When the dwarfs saw Snow White, they were happy. "Snow White," said Ace, "we cannot find Silly and Curious. We think the evil queen took them." "Then we must find them," said Snow White. "Shy and Lazy, stay here in case they come back. The rest, come with me." They followed the bird deep into the forest. Far away, in the dark mountain, Queen Hela laughed. In her cave, she looked at the mirror. Inside the mirror, she could see the dwarf's forest. 2 dwarfs were already in a cage. They were silly and curious. "You will pay for helping Snow White," said Hela. Dunkov stood beside her, looking afraid. Hela walked back to the mirror. Black mirror," she said, "show me Snow White." The mirror showed Snow White walking with her friends. "Turn the forest dark," shouted Hela. "Make a big storm to stop them." The sky became black. Rain and thunder filled the forest. Snow White held her cloak tightly. "Don't give up," she told the dwarfs. "We must find our friends." The colorful bird led them through the dark night. They walked for hours in the cold wind. At last, they saw a high mountain. "There," said Ace, "that must be Hela's cave." The dwarfs were tired but brave. They climbed up slowly, one by one. On the top, they saw the cave and the cage. Inside the cage were Silly and Curious. "Snow White, help us," shouted Silly. "Hold on," said Snow White. "We are coming." But Dunkov was guarding the cage. He did not see the dwarfs behind the rocks. The dwarfs made a plan. Angry whispered, "I will jump on Dunkov." Jolly said, "I will open the cage." "Be careful," said Snow White. "We must be quiet." Angry sneaked behind Dunkov. He jumped and put a sack over Dunkov's head. Dunkov fell and hit the ground. Jolly ran to the cage. The cage dropped down and hit Dunkov's head. He was knocked out, but the cage was still locked. "The key is on Dunkov's neck," said Angry. Jolly took the key and opened the door. Silly and Curious ran out and hugged their friends. Meanwhile, Snow White was inside the cave. Hela stood in front of the black mirror. "Welcome, Snow White," said Hela with a smile. "You cannot escape this time." "Stop, Hela," said Snow White calmly. "You can't be beautiful by doing evil. Beauty comes from the heart." Hela screamed, "No, I want power." Her eyes turned red. Her fingers became long and sharp. She walked towards Snow White. Snow White stepped back slowly. Behind her was the dark mirror. Hela laughed loudly. "Now you will disappear forever," she shouted. At that moment, Silly came into the cave. He ran in front of Snow White. Then the other dwarfs came behind Hela. "Push!" shouted Angry. They pushed Hela into the mirror. "No!" she screamed. The mirror glowed with black light. Hela disappeared inside forever. Outside, Dunkov woke up. "My queen, I am coming," he cried. He ran into the cave. He saw the mirror and touched it. Then he too was pulled inside. The dwarfs looked at the mirror. "It's over," said Snow White. "Let's destroy it." Together, they carried the mirror to the cliff. 1, 2, 3, throw! The mirror fell and broke into 1,000 pieces. Light filled the mountain. The dark sky became blue again. Snow White smiled at her friends. "You are all safe now." The dwarfs cheered and hugged each other. "Let's go home," said Jolly. "Yes," said Silly. "I am hungry." Everyone laughed. They walked down the mountain together. The bird flew above them happily. When they reached the cottage, the table was ready. Snow White cooked a warm dinner. They all sat and ate together. They laughed and told stories. The night was peaceful again. Silly and Curious were happy to be safe. "Thank you, Snow White," said the dwarfs. "You saved us all." Snow White smiled kindly. "Friendship is the best magic," she said. They sang a happy song together. The moon shone over the forest, and they all lived happily ever after. Snow White and the dwarfs walked higher and higher into the mountain. The storm was strong, but they did not stop. Snow White said, "We must save our friends. Be brave." The bird kept flying in front of them, showing the way. Finally, they reached the top of the mountain. They saw a dark cave. A cage hung over the cliff. Inside the cage were Silly and Curious. Snow White shouted, "Hold on, we are here to help you." Silly called, "Snow White, watch out, the queen has a new mirror." Snow White looked into the cave and saw the black mirror glowing. Hela laughed loudly, "You cannot stop me this time." Her eyes turned red, and her fingers became long and sharp. She pointed at Snow White and said, "Go into the dark mirror." Snow White stepped back slowly. The dwarfs hid behind the rocks. They had a plan. Angry whispered, "We must stop her now." He jumped out and ran behind Dunkov the servant. Angry put a big sack over Dunkov's head. Dunkov shouted, "Help me, my queen." Jolly ran to the cage and pulled the rope. The cage came down fast and hit Dunkov on the head. Dunkov fell down. The key on his neck was shining. Jolly said, "The key, quick, grab it." He took the key and opened the cage. Silly and Curious ran out and hugged their friends. "Thank you, you saved us," they said. Inside the cave, Hela and Snow White were face to face. Snow White said, "You cannot be beautiful with a dark heart. Beauty comes from kindness and love." Hela shouted, "No, I will be the most beautiful forever." She raised her sharp hands and moved toward Snow White. The dwarfs ran inside to help her. Silly climbed in front of Hela to distract her. The others pushed her from behind. Hela lost her balance and fell into the black mirror. She screamed loudly, "No!" The mirror shook and became dark and quiet. Dunkov woke up and ran into the cave. He saw the mirror and shouted, "My queen, I am coming." He jumped into the black mirror and disappeared too. The cave became peaceful again. Snow White looked at her friends and smiled. "Let's destroy the mirror," said Ace. Together they pushed the black mirror off the cliff. The mirror broke into 1,000 pieces. The sky turned blue again, and the storm stopped. The birds sang a happy song. Everyone laughed and hugged each other. They walked down the mountain together. Back in the cottage, Snow White made a big dinner. They ate pies, bread, and sweet fruit. Silly and Curious told their story to everyone. Jolly laughed so hard he almost fell off his chair. Snow White said, "Now we can all rest in peace." They sang a happy song before sleeping. Outside, the moon shone bright and calm. Snow White whispered, "Thank you, my dear friends." The dwarfs smiled and closed their eyes. They all lived happily ever after. The end.